to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
First item tonight, we have some recognitions we'd like to do here. First of all, Students of the Month for the Junior Senior High, Mr. Tyndall.
All right, I do not think we have any of our recipients here tonight due to prior obligations, but I want to celebrate them anyway. This month for junior high, our student of the month was Gianna Tyndall. So we give Gianna a round of applause. And we actually had a tie for the senior high, so we have two recipients of the student of the month. That is Brady Mitchell and Amari Hansford. That's all I got. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Tyndall. Next student of the month for the student of the month for elementary, we have Mrs. Hoeing here.
Okay, hello everybody. I'm going to go ahead and call out all of our Spartans of the month at the elementary. So we're going to start tonight with Charlie Retier. I'd also like to know that Charlie dressed like me this evening. She looks pretty sharp, I think. Clifton Burbrick. Nice job. Evelyn Garcia Hernandez. Good job. Maddie Forrest. Madeline Burton. Avery Jones. Mia Garcia Hernandez. Good job, Mia.
Thank you.
Rhett Alexander. Hey, buddy. That way the camera can see you. Nice job, dude. Jaden Hamilton. Good job. Bailey Gosser. Augustus Johnson. Good job, dude. Cameron Fletcher. Madison Craig. Riley Denton. Alex Kelly. Good job, dude. Milo Corwin. And Isaiah Tucker. I think we had them all here tonight.
All right, good. Good job, students of the month.
Well, this is your one chance to get out of here and not see the boring stuff. Feel free to stick around if you'd like, but.
She couldn't stop playing with me today because I didn't beat her. She's gonna be stuck with all place. And yesterday, she made me get stuck with the boys, so One for 2 weeks. That's it. I don't
Like Styles, forget to say what you said.
All caught up on gossip.
So that everyone.
Yeah. I call it a learning experience.
And that pretty much summarizes having a daughter.
Overall, I still really like it.
Yeah.
Gives people,
Yeah,
get to see the
like silence or
that happens.
nonstop.
My kids haven't told me that I'm done like
I love that.
and still you won't sit in the front seat?
Yeah.
The front row? No? It's not like a splash zone or anything.
It's okay when I get up to speak, I'm gonna move this chair out of the way.
John, next board meeting, we'll just take one row in the front for you, and then once you sit down, we'll just fill the rest of the thing.
I'll make sure the flags are
We can put
And as a
that,
matter of fact,
we'll put reserved on
that,
it.
that one row in the front is gonna consist of one chair, just for you.
There's choice seat.
Paul, are you gonna come sit front row?
No, I'm gonna still work here, I gotta be back in another meeting.
I said we could go then.
Okay. On to, we don't have any agenda modifications this evening, so it's time for our public comments. Do you have any public comments? Here's your chance.
They stepped out, so there'll be more room for
I was
everyone.
like, that's weird.
I think they stepped out, so they're.
They gave up their seats back there.
I got it. Alright.
All right. On to consent items and claims. We have approval of minutes of the previous meeting and approval of account payable vouchers.
Discussion on that?
All good. All good.
I'll second.
I'll make a motion.
I'll.
No, I said all good, but I will make a motion.
I was going with that, I was gonna let it go.
No.
Alright.
All those in favor? Alright, 6-0.
Next, we have the business and financial reports. You have the financial report, and cafeteria account reports, and extracurricular account reports. If you have any questions on any of those or statements.
Hearing none.
Okay. On to new business. I would recommend the acceptance of these donations and grants. First of all, we have the donation from Mount Auburn Christian Church, the amount of $50 for the Spartan food pantry. Donation from Chenal Fiberglass, in the amount of $500 for school corporation. Donation from Mount Gilead Baptist Church in the amount of $300 for the Spartan food pantry. Donation from Varner and Treva Wittes, an amount of $50 for the Spartan cupboard. And donation from Miller Pipeline by David Hudson in the amount of $500 for the elementary backpack program. And donation from Top Crop Alliance in the amount of $500 for the Southwestern FFA.
Any questions? Do we have a motion to accept?
Make a motion.
Same?
Second.
All those in favor? 6-0.
Thank you to all those places that donated and individuals that donated. We certainly appreciate your donations there, so thank you. Next, we have recommend approval of the McGraw-Hill Elementary Math Curriculum. The reason why we're purchasing the elementary math curriculum is we purchased curriculum last year for some of the staff members because at that time we had one staff member per grade level that was teaching math. Next year, we will not be having a math teacher and an English teacher. Everyone will be teaching those subjects. So that's why we have asked for the approval of the math curriculum.
Can we talk a little bit about why that's the benefits and kind of why we're going back to that route? I mean,
Yeah.
I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
But just,
I mean, I think the biggest thing, in my opinion, is that the teachers who will be teaching those students will be working with those students all day long. They'll have a better understanding of their learning processes, learning needs. Frankly, the districts that I was in before, that's what we did, and it was effective. Little things like parent-teacher conferences too. When parents meet with teachers at parent-teacher conference, they'll meet with one teacher and they'll talk about the various subject areas. Beth, do you have anything you want to add there, or
I think the
anything
biggest
I
thing,
missed?
I've got a couple relationships are so huge, especially with our kiddos who are struggling to achieve, and with some of the backgrounds some of our kiddos come from. Having one teacher that you have that strong relationship with is just as impactful as having an effective teacher or a highly effective teacher. So building some of those relationships and focusing on those relationships. Something else that we've noticed right now in our 3rd through 6th grade classrooms a lot, our teams tend to ability group. And if we have a student who is high in reading, doesn't necessarily mean that they're going to be high in math. So if we have all of our teachers teaching all of our subjects, we're better able to meet those individual needs of the students when we're not choosing, well, they're high in reading, so we're going to go ahead and push them into that math class, and then they're not getting exactly what they need. So it's a big thing on relationships, making sure the kids are getting exactly what they need.
Thank you.
Will this also help with like the availability of the teaching assistants
Yes.
to be able to help out? Perfect.
any discussion on that? Look for a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve the purchase of the math curriculum.
I'll second. All those in favor? 6-0.
So every 6 years, I believe it is, we go into rotation where we approve different curricular areas, and this year happens to be the English language arts curriculum. Last board meeting, actually Five spoke to us a little bit about the new elementary curriculum that she recommended for approval, and so now we're bringing that curriculum tonight for board approval. So recommend approval of the McGraw-Hill Elementary English language arts curriculum, in the amount of $138,117.58.
Any questions,
Can
comments?
I ask Beth questions again?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Hey Beth, do you mind?
Do you feel,
mind going up to the microphone just so people can hear from home?
do you feel pretty confident with this curriculum?
I do. One of the things, a lot of things attracted us to this curriculum. The curriculum we have currently is really not strong in writing, and so we do see a need in writing with our students. This is going to be a little bit beefier as far as the writing go. The phonics is strong. The phonemic awareness components are strong. No matter what in a reading curriculum, we are going to find things that our kids are going to need along the way. Our goal with this particular curriculum is right now what's happening in our classrooms isn't always, I don't want to say it's inconsistent, but especially in our younger grades, we're having to supplement with a lot of different materials to meet the needs of our kids. Wonders has been a great program, it's just outdated now. This program will help us eliminate a lot of that so that we have more consistent things happening across our classrooms in our building and then also across our grade levels.
Perfect, thank you.
No problem. Anything else?
Quick question for me, if you guys can hear me.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
From the presentation last month, we talked about really going all in on this curriculum package as far as all the accessories and aids for the teachers and then the training. Is that still all included in here as expected?
Yes, it is.
Yep. It is.
Thank you.
Thank you, Beth.
No problem.
Look for a motion on that. Any takers?
I'll make a motion to approve the new English language curriculum.
I'll second.
I'll second.
All right, there we go. All those in favor? 6-0.
Next, we recommend approval of the roof bid from Big Ben Roofing Company. This went out for bid. Bids were opened on April 1st. We had 3 companies who bid on the roofing project, and every one of the bids came in lower than the estimate that was given originally. So the estimate, I believe, was like 960,000 was what we estimated the cost, and the bid came in at 668,000. So considerably less. And the other 2 bids were competitive. They were just above that in the $700,000 range. So we were pleasantly surprised and happy with that. So plan is to get going on that. We hope to start towards the beginning of May and end towards the beginning of August. So
How confident are we that that's gonna be done prior to the start of school? Just curiosity question.
all I can say is we hope to be done by the beginning of August.
Yeah,
If not,
right at the line.
if not, I think that probably the distraction, the interruption will be minimal towards the end of the project. I know when I've had roofing projects before, towards the end, it wasn't quite as disruptive as what's going on in the middle. So, but it's all weather dependent and everything else.
Yeah, that can be a little tumultuous.
Is this covering both buildings?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I was just getting ready to ask.
It is
the whole roof project that we planned.
It's the whole roof project.
Not the whole roof, but the whole roof project.
All the roofing needs that we had in both buildings, yeah. So, because we already did some a few years ago, so yeah. So the roofing needs that we identified. So.
I was gonna clarify that, just with, probably with Stacy as well, because previously there was a roof project that they thought was the whole roof. It was not the whole roof. So I want to be 100% clear, we are doing the rest of the roofing that needs done, correct?
I don't know if that's the right way to say that.
Okay, word it the right way.
This is the right way to say it, is we did a roof inspection. We did infrared scans on what was there. We did core tests all over the whole, everything to determine what needed to be done. So we made sure we got everything that needed to be done. And Jeremy may remember this better than me too, because Dustin's been dealing with this recently and he bid it out. But not every section of the roof will be dealt exactly the same. So it's, dependent on what that section needs is what's being done. So is that correct to say?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah. So it's not just everything's getting done. It's let's do a really good assessment of what needs to be done and specifically what needs to be done in this section and only spend the money on that.
So not every single, so we have the map of what got done in the last project. And then, so not every single part of what did not get done in that is getting touched this time.
I would expect that's correct, but I don't know for sure.
But it's just based on the needs that were assessed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I just want to clarify that because it was a big deal that it was said the whole roof was done and it wasn't. So whatever they've decided needs done, I'm not a roofer, I don't know. But I just want to clarify that rather than have assumptions moving forward one day when we have a roof repair that needs done.
Yep.
So these were all the red highlighted areas of the last presentation.
I presume probably some of the yellow too, but I mean, my big question would be, once this project is completed, do you foresee any roofing needs that we will, like what time frame will we need to look at roofs again?
Continuously.
Okay.
Just to say it generally.
Next year you're not going to come back with another $1 million.
A roof has typically a 20-year warranty on it, right? So if it's not all done at the same time, that means you're always going to be looking at the next piece that's going out of warranty. So that's where you're at, right? It's not everything at once, which is a good place to be. So you don't have to redo the whole roof at once every time it comes up.
I guess when would be the next, do you have a time frame when you think the next step would be?
By any means. I'm sorry.
Okay. That's all right. I just think that'd be a good thing for us to.
I'm sure, I'll defer to Jeremy. I'm sure he remembers exactly, right?
I don't remember exactly, but in this roof project, I think we identified 11 or 12 sections of roof that needed to be done. So what we'd be happy to do is to develop a plan of the elementary and the high school, show you those 12 sections that are being currently roofed, show you the sections that were done under the last project, and then try and identify warranties remaining so that you have an idea moving forward when those would
that would be great.
And Jamie, you probably have a copy of the roof report that we got?
Yeah, and you should have a copy of the roof report too that I sent. in the Friday update a while ago, yeah.
Thanks for letting me ask the question, but on the 22nd, when we talk about facilities, will this type of information be available and discussed at those meetings?
Yeah, that'll be on, everything will be on the table.
That'll be on the table, I mean, yeah, it'll be, yeah. And now it'll be actually be to me, it'll be a positive that we will have all the roofs inspected, looked at, and identified any needs that we had, so, yeah.
Since I know we're not doing a complete tear off on it, most of it or any of it, right?
No.
Yeah, most of
So-
it not. Is there any part that's complete thereoff?
No.
No, there's no part that's
So,
complete.
but you still get the 20-year warranty with it, even though it's using old stuff underneath it that's still good.
Right.
Okay.
That's what part of the infrared scan and the roof cores help you determine.
Mm-hmm.
Infrared scans help you determine if insulation that's existing has been saturated.
Yeah.
And if it is, you plan on tearing it off, right?
Yeah.
So that's something you have to find out before you start the project.
And then when we approve this it's gonna be monthly progress installments. This is just approving the bid, and then as the progress happens, the money will get spent.
When the board approves this, then a contract will be written, to the contractor, and, then the Tecton will get started pushing the job.
So we're not approving spending this money today, or essentially.
Right.
Yeah.
It'll be over
It'll be
the course of
progress.
the summer.
Over the project, the phase, yep.
Any other questions?
Brad, did you have something?
No, I'm good with it, thank you.
All right. I'll be open to hearing a motion to approve
I'll make a motion to approve the bid for the roofing.
Second.
All right, all those in favor? 6-0.
Okay. The next item, recommend approval of the people-driven technology for network and wireless project in the amount of $38,963.81 spent over the next 3 years for the grand total of $116,891.44. This is something that I know Zach addressed in the last board meeting and brought it to you. This is to replace the network switches, correct?
Yeah.
It doesn't change anything with the internet company that we're using or anything like that. It's just the switches.
Switches and APs.
Yeah.
Is that both buildings?
Yeah, it's both buildings, it's high school and the elementary school.
You know, I'm about to say, break it down to me like I'm 12 years old.
Okay, so there's I'm trying to figure out the best way to do this. So the way you get internet through a building is through wires and APs, which is called access points, formally it's access points, which a lot of people know as Wi-Fi routers. So their switches are the ones that have the cords going from the Wi-Fi routers into the switch, and that switch basically, it allows internet to go into it and then for it to feed internet out. This is a major oversimplification, so I feel like anyone that knows technology is going to jump on my throat when I'm simplifying this much, but basically it sends internet out to everybody. This includes like wall outlets that you plug your phone into, access points. It also includes like the huddle camera that's inside the gym.
All right, perfect. Other than that, can you help me digest point number 8 on the contract with the warranties and remedies?
Yes. Point number 8 being the warranties and remedies, the product warranty. Do you want me to go deeper into the product warranty or the service warranty?
Just essentially, so this is a third-party company that we buy through, and so is
Right,
that right? So then the warranty from the manufacturers is good.
Right, they're partnered with Cisco, so they're a Cisco reseller. So People Driven isn't going to give us a warranty in the same way that Amazon wouldn't give you a warranty for a product you purchased through them.
Okay, but no matter who does the work to install, do we still have the?
Well, no, it's People Driven does warrant the service.
Okay.
So the work that they do is warranted. It's underneath service warranty. It's the second paragraph in number 8. It says people driven represents warrants and covenants that people driven shall perform all services, if any, in accordance with the material specifications set forth in the quote. Goes on to say that the applicable quote for 90 days completion thereof, notwithstanding any contained herein to the contrary. Needless to say, they're warranting the service.
So you feel comfortable with this?
Yes, I do.
Okay. That's all.
Zach, I've got two questions. First one, is there any backup hardware included in here?
I can't say there's necessarily backup hardware, but there is there has been some ports that have been added to switches that we did have to allow for if there are certain Ethernet lines that if a switch goes down, we can move some of the important Ethernet lines to a different switch that is still working. So I can't necessarily say we have backup equipment, but we do have a backup strategy.
Okay, yeah, I just know APs fail from time to time, so while the warranty claim is going on, if you have a swappable unit.
So I take that back. I do believe we have backup APs. I was thinking more so the switches.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Second question, expandability. I don't know what coverage we have outside the buildings, but you know, as we think of outdoor classrooms, things of that nature, kids out of the track, does it make sense to have coverage in any of those areas? If not today, are we able to expand to that in the future if needed?
I think it makes a lot of sense to have Wi-Fi out, especially in the athletic complex, especially when it comes to students, whether they're out there just running on the track or exercising, giving them the ability to be able to do homework out there or do whatever they need to do, as well as powering a huddle camera outside. I'm a proponent of getting internet out there. However, that will be a task. It's not something that's going to be easily done unless it's done half-handedly and not correctly.
Okay, but the switches you have today, you have expansion ports available?
Yes.
Okay. I'm good. Thank you.
Does this fully cover what our needs are hardware-wise?
Yes,
right now.
It actually goes over it. I wanted to make sure that we were only at 75% capacity, just to give us 25% of room to grow. I didn't want us to be stuck at where we're at.
I got a few questions. So once this is, it looks like 3 payments.
Yes.
What happens in 3 years? Like, or when would the next upgrade be? Does this take care of us for a while? Or I know technology is continually changing, but is this something to expect every 3 years, or is this a 5-year deal, or?
So the licenses that are quoted in there, those are 3-year licenses. So in 3 years, those are the costs that we will be looking at again. The APs, the physical APs, I give those a lifespan of 5 to 6 years. So in 5 to 6 years, we'll be looking at APs again. For the switching and hardware, I would give that a lifespan of 8 to 10 years. So we wouldn't be looking at switches for probably 8 to 10 years from now.
So being new, is this something that we do every 3 years typically? Or?
Well, considering that the switches, I'm sorry to overrun, but considering the switches that we had were 10 years past support, which means 10 years ago, HP said we're no longer supporting these products because they were that old. It doesn't look like it's been done for a very, very long time.
Okay. I know in your presentation last month, you mentioned something about Shelby Internet or something.
Yes.
This all works with that if we would ever decide to do that down the road? We're
Yes.
good with that? Okay. And then I noticed on the 3 other quotes, one was extremely low compared to the others. Is that because they didn't quote the same stuff, or?
It's because they quoted a brand that I have never heard of, had no experience with. They were originally going to quote a different brand, which is a brand that the military uses. They're originally going to quote that brand. Their sales rep didn't get back to them, so they couldn't end up quoting that brand. So they quoted this other brand that I don't, in my personal opinion, I think it's not worth the risk of figuring out what this lower level company versus Cisco, who has basically marketed themselves as the king of networking. I think that ultimately you get what you pay for, and I think if we went with that quote, we would be having issues that become very prevalent.
Okay. And then finally for Bonnie, I know we've been talking about operations fund a lot here lately. What is this? Is this we feel good? Is it scary? I mean, obviously it's on the agenda. I mean, so I'm just.
I can speak. Obviously, anytime you spend more money in the operations fund than we maybe plan to, it's not something you really feel good about. But I think we're also at the place we don't have much choice either. I mean, we've got to do it. So I don't know.
I agree.
Yeah.
Necessary. We gotta have.
Yeah.
Yeah, John, I would think breaking it out over 3 years is hugely helpful, especially with your interest. So, Bonnie, I would suspect that it's not gonna smack us in the face that hard, with the annual number.
Yep.
It's a lot better spread over 3 years.
My hope right now is that it's spread over 3 years. My hope is that I've lowered it enough to have it stick within the technology budget. Right now, I'm not looking to ask for more budget. Right now, things do change, so I can't promise that. But as of right now, that's the plan.
And you kind of gave us an update about the bond and the construction stuff, and it had technology in it. Is it something we can do with that or not?
I don't think it's something we necessarily want to do with that, because I think we want to use that bond money to take care of some of the other needs that we have, that we've already addressed, with as far as the HVAC, and the roofing needs that we have. Maybe if we get to the point where we have our athletic fields we can take care of. I think we can take care of it in other ways without touching that money. It's not something you want to do.
And Zach, you said that this falls into your budget, correct?
That's the way I have it set up right now, and I'm comfortable with it being split in 3.
Right.
That was the nice thing is splitting it in 3 years. It does take less of a hit because you are breaking it up over the 3 years. So.
Would you be cringing less if there wasn't so much uncertainty at the state level with our? That would help. Yeah. That would help a lot. There's just a lot of unknowns right now, so roll the dice.
Yep. If we said yes tonight to this, when would this expected to be done?
It will be done over the summer. From talking to people driven, it sounds like throughout the span of a week, it would be completed. The only difference there is that in order to lower costs even further, I said that me and the tech department would hang the access points throughout the school. So that's going to be on myself and whoever else I have helping me out. But that was in order to lower the cost of labor, and to not have them go around the schools hanging the access points.
And that's implemented in this labor savings?
Yeah, well, they didn't implement it, they just didn't quote.
Okay.
Any other questions?
So the other quote that was discussed there, that you were comfortable with, would that be essentially like buying generic?
It would be like buying a Walmart brand for that's at home, trying to use it for a corporation.
I do it lasts me about 2 years. So I understand. It's really not saving me any money, but it feels better when I buy it.
I guess if I had to make a final comment from my end is, I mean, I know it needs to be done, and I know we want to do it. It got thrown on us pretty quick, all this information, and from the last few meetings, we've had a lot of discussion over the operations fund, and I know we need to do this. I just didn't know if there was time to think about this a little bit more, where I could actually see it, it happened quick, and I know you want to do it, and I know we probably need to do it, but I mean, it's a lot of money, and I know the operations fund isn't where it was, and I I feel good about this company and the price and the 3-year deal and everything. I just don't know. I just want, me personally, want to make sure that we are good with it as a corporation.
If it
So I
helps
have
out
some
at all.
hesitancy on it.
Okay. If it helps out at all, the sales rep that I have with People Driven said that this is the lowest he's seen Cisco quote their equipment. And the fact that we have so much of the fact that we're getting all of our equipment right now when Cisco's quoting it at the lowest that he's seen in recent memory, I think that bodes well for the school corporation, especially with the 0% interest rate they're offering.
How long is this quote good for?
This quote is good. I believe it's good for 90 days. 90 days from when it was quoted, and it was quoted on 3/24. So 6/24. Sorry, the expiration. Actually, no, it's not good for 90 days. The expiration date's 4/23. My bad, it's right underneath that. I saw 90 days down there.
Yeah, John, I understand your concerns. And I know we have only talked about it a few times. The price point, from what I'm used to, this is spot on, and I also agree it feels like it's a good price for the amount of equipment coming in. The understanding behind it with the warranties is very valuable. The equipment we have today, essentially we're at risk of them not working tomorrow. And if they decide to not work tomorrow, we have no support. And having the 3-year payment plan, I think makes this very plausible for us.
I agree, and I think the biggest thing that makes me feel okay about it is that it does fit within the current technology budget. If we were looking to try to move money out of the rainy day fund or do things like that, then I would be much more hesitant. But yeah, that's my 2 cents. Any other discussion, comment, questions?
John and Beth, do you guys have any pain points with the Wi-Fi or the internet now, like currently the way it is?
It's inconsistent at best. Yeah, and it's been more so this year than in years past. I mean, phones go down, Wi-Fi goes down, and usually it's up within 5 or 10 minutes. But I mean, if you're in the middle of class, that's 5 or 10 minutes of instructional if they lose. So it has definitely been inconsistent at best.
And that's the equipment, not the provider?
That's the provider. I would go to say it's the provider, not the equipment. If the equipment goes down, I think if the main switch in the elementary school goes down, you're talking the entire corporation is down.
Mm-hmm.
So right now we're relying on a single fault system. One fault and we're down.
So this doesn't solve every problem still?
This does not solve every problem, but I can assure you that I'm in conversation with ENA about raising our bandwidth to 1 GB per second, because I believe that's more apt to what we need versus 500 megabits per second, which is where we're at now. There is some other funding discussion that goes into that, which I'm not necessarily prepared to talk about today, but I don't have the numbers or anything. I've just asked for the numbers and I'm awaiting those. So
as of right now, what we are relying on, you said stopped being supported 10 years ago?
Yes.
So what does that mean? Break that part down to me.
That means 10 years ago, HP said we're no longer backing this product. It's too old. We can no longer justify backing this product as something that we're going to support and we're going to help fix, kind of idea.
Okay. So if something does.
Let me add a couple points to that. So if a switch is out of support, you're no longer getting updates to the switch either. So if there are new cybersecurity issues that are known and out there in the world that need to be prevented, our equipment won't be protected from that. So it could put us at risk from that state. So when a switch, when a piece of hardware is under support, you're able to get those updates, security updates, efficiency updates, making sure that it's in good order and protected and whatever's coming from the world.
question, but.
Well,
Rob,
I want
Rob
to,
got it.
I want to calm some nerves a little bit. The switches, the school is still behind a firewall. And so the switches are not, it's a vulnerability from the inside. It's a huge vulnerability from the inside. But from the outside, the school is still behind a firewall. So I don't see, it's a huge concern. However, it's not the biggest concern we could possibly have. I just want to calm some nerves that we're not sitting here like a duck on a pond waiting for someone to attack. We still have technology in place that's meant to protect us from that.
I think my follow-up question was going to be more along the lines of, you know, since they don't support it anymore, since they don't fix it anymore, what happens when it goes down?
When it goes down, I can't even get into them. They won't let me into the switch. They won't even tell me how to get into it. And the only way that I can get into it, from my mind further, is for me to physically attack. No, not physically. For me to technologically attack the switch, so to send payloads to the switch, trying to get it to fail to let me in. However, that does carry casualties sometimes, and I've not seen it as a good idea for me to attempt to do that.
Clarify casualties.
Okay, so
just make it prettier. Make it prettier.
So the switch can die from me trying to do that, and so if the switch dies, then there's even more concern. So I've not tried harder to get into the switch.
Okay, perfect. Thank you.
Any other comments, questions? Looking for a motion to.
I'll make a motion to approve the contract.
I'll second.
All those in favor? 6-0.
Thank you, Zach.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. Next, you just have, before you do overtime report, overtime, you just had some people that were over scheduled hours at work. I don't think we need approval there, do we?
Okay, on to the reports and presentations.
Yeah, reports and presentations. First, we have Tech Tom, Primary Engineering and Moat Park here. Talk a little bit about the study you did as far as HVAC and electrical services.
On more money.
While Mike's passing this out, I'll make kind of my introduction kind of brief on this, but a number of months ago, we were retained to do mechanical HVAC analysis for the elementary school and the junior senior high school. Primary engineer has spent his time and their time within the buildings evaluating all of those existing systems. So with that tonight, we'd like to make a report on the findings of that, talk about life expectancies of the existing equipment, and then make recommendations for a future HVAC project that would remedy and or replace some of these items. So that'll turn it over to Mike.
All right, thanks, Chairman.
And Bob.
So I'm Mike Levius in primary engineering. I'm on the mechanical engineering side, plumbing side, and fire protection. Bob Altman is with our office and is on the electrical engineering side. So if you have questions directed towards a specific topic, I may hand off to Bob here. But essentially what I provided each of you tonight, and I can provide a digital copy for Mr. Stanford to follow up on later if you want to distribute at a later point in time, is just a very brief summary of some major highlights as we went through the buildings over your winter break and identified some items that we feel you should start to think about from a prioritization within the buildings. And I was just planning on going through this, and if you want to stop and have questions while we go through it, happy to do so. If you want to wait till the end, whatever works best for you guys. But essentially, starting at the high school, related to the HVAC systems, probably the one item that sticks out the most as far as a need that you're going to have to address sooner than later is the chilled water plant that's feeding cooling to the building. Due to the age of the plant, it's approximately 20 years old, and generally we find that 20 to 30 years is the average life expectancy, and starting at about year 20, you start to see failures and issues and service requests and starting to need more maintenance. And so it's something to keep on your radar, that that's probably your most pressing need that you have that is time sensitive. And so I've put a little bit of discussion here about changing that plan out. There's been a recent change in the refrigerants that are used in this type of equipment that have changed some code requirements of where you can put equipment inside the building versus outside the building. Currently, the equipment sitting inside the boiler room, which can still be done. However, there are new code stipulations that make it more challenging. So when that time comes to replace it, it's going to be more economically advised to set the unit outside the building to keep the refrigerant outside of the enclosed building because of ventilation requirements and things of that nature. A lot of it is tied to the refrigerants that are now being used have a slight flammability, where current refrigerants, they're not flammable. They still have ventilation requirements, but they don't have the degree of safety concern as being inside the building. So we do have an anticipated cost identified at around $645,000. I will preface, a lot of these costs were put together more than 2-3 weeks ago, when there was a lot of discussion, obviously today, about tariffs, which will impact a lot of the HVAC equipment that we're talking about today, because a lot of this equipment does come from Canada, a lot of it comes from Mexico, a lot of the components, the electronics are coming from overseas. So these prices do not include potential tariffs. As we're seeing, there's kind of a yo-yoing as to whether they will be in place or not in place. So just understand there could be some variation here, depending on timing of when this would happen.
Real quick, is this entire thing laid out by priority, number one priority, number two priority?
Not exactly every priority in every order. Stacy has a priority sheet that he'll come up and present to you.
Let's go through and let Tim describe everything, then we'll hit the budget, and we prioritize the budget sheet on the technology.
Thank you.
So, the west end of the building, there was a fine arts addition approximately 20 years ago. Rather than tying into the chilled water plant, they basically set a air handler with a dedicated cooling unit for that wing that's not tied in with the rest of the building. The age of that piece of equipment, again, is 20 years. You're nearing that replacement date that probably within the next 5 years, it's going to need to be replaced, because a catastrophic failure is bound to happen. And again, that's an older refrigerant. It's an R22. And there's two approaches. You could either replace it like for like, new condensing unit, but you would be forced to replace the air handler because of that refrigerant change. The new code requirements trip some stipulations that you can't just put a new outdoor unit and tie it to the indoor unit as it sits today. Upgrades would have to be made to both pieces. So alternatively, we've floated the concept here of, is that the appropriate time to tie it into the chilled water plant? And doing so would require some additional piping, and so there's just a simple diagram with some blue lines indicating that we've put some footages in to extend chilled water piping from the existing plant out to that wing. And while that occurs, we're thinking that that would run through the ceiling of the corridors. That'd be an appropriate time to take ceilings down, replace aged light fixtures. You don't have any LEDs in the building now. That'd be a perfect opportunity to do some lighting upgrades in that path as we put that piping in. So that cost is identified at around $339,000. There's been discussion, I believe, when we were here to interview, that the building is what we call a two-pipe changeover system. So item number 3 is to give you a path to see if there's a better way to do that. We've heard from facility staff, and I think some of the other staff within the district, that the two-pipe changeover is not ideal when you're in transition periods of the year. Spring and fall, you've got a cold morning and a warm afternoon, and swinging the plant from cooling mode to heating mode to cooling mode within the same day can be problematic. And it's not a simple process to swing them back and forth. you have a fairly complex piping system in your boiler room to try to make the best of that situation as you can. It's rather complex, and I think we heard that some of the components don't really work properly because of age. It's 20 years old, and actuators have failed, and sensors don't work the best, and so it's probably not a smooth process when it happens, if I had to guess. So one concept would be to start to think about a chilled water distribution separate from the system that's currently feeding both heating and cooling to the building. And that's typically what we would refer to as a 4-pipe system. You can have the option of running your heating plant or your chilled plant simultaneously, which may sound counterintuitive, but in some periods of the year where you need to do dehumidification, where you need to rain moisture out of the air because it's raining and it's 65 degrees outside, there's not a lot of cooling load, you still need to wring the moisture and then heat it back up just a tad so you don't freeze everybody out in the process. A 4-pipe system gives you that ability to do that if you choose. It also gives you the ability for those swing days from heating to cooling, morning to evening, with a lot less stress and frustration. It's
and quick question, have you looked at comparing that with multiple DX units? So a DX unit needs air handler, then with a hydraulic coil for heating?
We didn't specifically prepare that for this presentation, but I can just tell you off the cuff, in a high school, it's challenging to do so because of every individual classroom. It would be, I wouldn't say impractical, but not really the greatest idea to put a dedicated DX unit for every single zone that you have in the building because of the number of classrooms that you have. For large spaces like a gym or a cafeteria or media center, that's really not a huge impact, but it's small individual offices and classrooms that are tougher to deal with. But it could be done. I didn't prepare a cost for that option though.
No, that's fine. I was thinking larger air handlers up and around.
Yeah, and absolutely, if you'd like to break individual vent spaces off so you're not running the entire chiller plant and just have a dedicated separated DX unit, that's not an uncommon approach. A lot of times we'll see that with event spaces. So that's very feasible. So the approach that we're looking at is I think if we were to do the entire project from top to bottom to start to look at the secondary chilled water distribution would outstrip your budget in this first phase. And so we've worked with Stacy to talk about how could you get there with a phase 1 and a phase 2 approach. And so we've kind of broken the pieces up to make it a little bit of a step-in process as opposed to all at once. So one approach would be that chilled water run out to the fine arts wing on the west end would be one piece that you would accomplish. The other piece would be, as you look at this diagram with the blue lines, to start running some chilled water distribution on the north-south corridor, and then think about the front corridor at the south end of the building, and start to build that infrastructure and be ready for when you want to step into converting spaces over classrooms, offices, media center. You've got the infrastructure in place. And so built into that piece with the piping is also the light fixtures in the corridors, because we're going to be in the ceilings. That's the time to take the ceilings down and put new lights up. So that piece, just to get the chilled water infrastructure, is about $860,000. It doesn't get any spaces converted over. It's just preparing for that conversion down the road.
Are these the anticipated cost? Is that equipment only, or is
this is labor and materials and controls, and we've got some costs in for ceilings and light fixtures and things of that nature. I don't know that I've covered bonding and some of the overhead. But any questions on that so far? So the fourth point at the high school is a continuation of this conversation about converting to that 4-pipe distribution. each classroom currently has a unit in the classroom. It's what we call a unit ventilator. It's a horizontal unit sitting under the window. It's fed from the tunnel with piping presently. And it's got a single coil that is either running in heating mode or in cooling mode. It has just one coil, where traditionally a piece of equipment would have a dedicated heating coil, a dedicated cooling coil. You don't have that today, so this would be starting to convert those classroom units over to a newer unit that has both heating and cooling coils, and also offers the option to put a ducted supply rather than having all the air distributed from one location on the exterior of the wall. It starts to talk about a ducted supply across the entire classroom with diffusers, kind of like you see in the room we're sitting in today. One of the side benefits of this that we talk about is the educational environment is that student that's in an assigned seat sitting next to that unit every single day and has that fan blowing, there's more noise sitting closer to that unit than the student that's sitting on the opposite side of the room. And so there's talking about, is that student at a, inequity because if he has hearing issues, which occasionally find students that don't focus as much because they've got other life issues. It helps in that environment a little bit just from an acoustic standpoint, having a ducted supply. So the number that's listed here for this is a large numbers, about 3.8 million to do every single classroom, new HVAC unit, new ducted supply, the piping that goes with it, the controls that go with it, the light fixtures and the ceiling, and some architectural modifications because there's casework along the perimeter that would have to be modified to handle the work that's going on. And so we broke it down into a room by room cost of about $76,000 per classroom to make that step to that new piece of equipment and also get it tied into that chilled water distribution system that we talked about previously. I know that there's a lot there, and so I want to pause and just see if you have any questions on the concept.
I bring this up every time we have these discussions, and I feel like I just have to reiterate it to make sure that I'm not forgetting to do it. One of the things I always want to talk about is the controls, because I know there's a big variety in HVAC controls.
Yes.
And it seems in the past we've been given kind of the deluxe Cadillac version. And those are typically not as reliable as something that is more middle of the road or more analog style. I just want to see if there's how much variability there is in these components, and because I know at least for me, I would much rather have a simpler analog version that's going to be more robust for the long term than something that somebody can turn on and off from home.
So, to be very honest, in a building of this size, really the system that makes the most sense is what we call a digital control system. And you can put as many bells and whistles into it as you like, or you could keep it as simple as you like. But ultimately, I think your baseline is to start with a digital control system. You can make it a very simplistic system of there's a thermostat on the wall that controls this controller and only that controller. It has very little alarming functionality, very little scheduling functionality, but you lose some opportunities for energy efficiencies because you sacrifice the ability for global scheduling of, hey, school starts at this time, it ends at this time, we're going to put them all into occupied mode and unoccupied mode as a group. So I think the recommendation I would share is you should have a networked control system at a bare minimum just to give you some of those functions.
Right. Well, ultimately that's up to Dr. Wilkins and the administrators to what they think is most applicable for the classroom, but I just, in my mind, I want to make sure that we're at least addressing that thought, because if we have some, $30,000 control unit, and then a year from now, well, hey, guess what? Now that's not even in service. Now we're gonna need to upgrade it. Now it's $50,000. It just becomes this long, drawn out process when a $15 switch does pretty much the same thing. You just have to walk over there and do it. So just want to make sure that's at least being thought about and discussed.
Yeah, and honestly, we're here to serve the school district, and whatever directive you give us, we will support you to give you the best outcome we can deliver for you.
That's just discuss it more.
Yep.
No, that's a good point, Derek. Have you done any, energy studies or even off the cuff, energy studies of where we're at today with the efficiencies of our equipment and system and what this new, system of thermostats would bring us?
I have not specifically done an energy model for your building, but I can tell you that the boiler plant that you have is a fairly new plant. It's fairly efficient in its functionality. The chiller plant with the change out, you'll pick up a couple of efficiency points, but really where most of your energy is going to be consumed is in that scheduling and programming function of how are you controlling the outside air coming into the building, because that's where a lot of your load, that if you aren't scheduling and closing the outside air dampers after people are out of the building, that's where you're wasting energy. How that's operating.
Do you have any catalog or historical data, you know, percentage improvement by implementing this type of methodology?
With what we're proposing today, I'd say you probably pick up a few points of efficiency just because of the fan efficiencies within the new units are a better style units in ECM, electrically commutated motor, as opposed to a split capacitor motor. They pick up a few points of efficiency just on the electrical consumption. So you'd probably see a little bit of reduction on the electrical side. If we do the work that we're talking about with the light fixtures, that's going to be a tremendous impact, and Bob can speak to that better than I can.
Yeah, I mean, we'll be dropping probably 30 watts a fixture right now. So, I mean, you look at that over a school district or over a classroom areas, that's quite a bit of, and you'll get better light out of it. You'll get more usable light. Right now, a typical trough is 73% efficient with what it puts out, where we'll be closer to the 90s and 100, the way the LEDs are set up. And then you'll bring in also some help in the classroom as far as controllability, because all LEDs are set up with 0 to 10 dimming, so you can dim the lights. So if you're doing projector work or you're wanting to calm students down and kind of pull lights down a little bit, you can do that kind of stuff with it too. So.
And then there's also the occupancy.
Yeah, so we'll put occupancy sensors in because we got to meet an Indiana Energy Code, which that'll allow if a teacher goes out of the room and she's gone for a half hour and leaves the lights on, the lights will go out. So you're not burning those lights when people aren't in the room. But then we'll still give them the ability, if they don't want the lights on, they can shut them off with the switch. So there's some savings in those.
Yeah, I think ultimately your biggest energy gains will be on the lighting side.
Yeah.
To go to the LEDs. Does that answer your question?
A little bit. I would have expected more than a couple points for an occupancy control system. And then upgrading the chiller and moving to a 4-pipe.
Yeah, the lighting probably will.
Yeah, I'd have to look at. I'd have to run a calculator.
Yeah, we could do a fixture count and give you a better idea. We didn't prepare that based on the limited scope of what we were asked to do today, but rolling into a larger project, we can absolutely do those evaluations for you. Yeah, just on the HVAC. Couple points on fan energy. Chiller plant, you'll pick up a couple points, but the lighting is probably the bigger piece.
All right, quick question. So we do the 4-pipe changeover. Now, you can't hook the chill water to the old units. So if we do that, the only way to utilize that chill water is to replace the unit.
Yes, correct.
Yeah, it'd be all or nothing, John. It's just how you stage it.
Yeah, and the unfortunate aspect of the building, just the physics of the space, is piping is currently running through the tunnels under the building, and the way the pipes are hung in that tunnel, there's really no good way for a contractor to get in and run a second set of pipes through the tunnel because they're hanging right in the middle of the tunnel, and you can't really walk in them. It's more of a crawl and shimmy and try to get crews through those tunnels to hang additional piping. Just you'd spend more money than taking the ceilings down in the corridors to do it.
And then, okay, so then if you ran it through the ceiling, there's no way that these old units, well, I guess they'd have to have 2 coils in there.
Yes,
they just have the 1 coil.
Correct.
Yeah. Okay.
So, next item on the high school was the main office. Zoning's a challenge there. We did hear from, I think, one individual that mentioned that zoning's not great. You essentially just have an inside zone and an outside zone. So you've got individual offices all tied to the same thermostat, and from an office staff standpoint, it's not ideal. So we do have a dollar value assigned to replacing that unit and putting some additional zone controls at $225,000. That's mostly a comfort improvement. It's really not a huge change. It's to provide additional zone control. The media center air handler is item 6, and again, due to age, it's nearing a replacement period. We've got an item line for that at $140,000. Average life for an air handler is 30 to 50 years, but that widely varies based on preventative maintenance that's being done. If you take really good care of it, you can get 50 years out of an air handler. But if you don't take care of it, 30 years is not uncommon. The next item, number 7, talks about lighting. So, Bob, anything you want to add on that?
No, what I did is I pulled out what we were doing in the mechanical stuff and just figured out what we would have still left to do to get the rest of the building converted over to LED, which would be all like the odd spaces like storage rooms and things that probably are super high priority, but as if you wanted to get through that's what that one, number 7, looks like. Number 8, existing switchboard. The existing switchboard's original building. Typically, you can get 25, 30 years out of a switchboard, and that's original to the building. There's lots of mechanisms in it, springs and stuff, and the breakers and the fuses and stuff. If those aren't exercised, they seize up after a while. And with a switchboard, that thing fails. It's not like we can run down to the store and get another one right away. It's something that over time, it takes a while to get. So we looked at that as something that probably should be on the list because it's probably original. It is original to the building. We also went through and looked at, there's some existing panel boards that were from the original building. Again, you're going to get to the point where you're going to have problems finding parts and pieces to fix them if they fail. So we kind of suggested maybe upgrading those panels and getting them out and just replacing them with new. So if there's ever an issue, you can still get parts. You can get parts and pieces. Typical panel, we say 15 to 20 years sometimes. A lot of them we see over 30 that you can still get parts, but as manufacturers change, they start changing the breakers and trying to get it where they might come up with a different design, so then you're looking at issues of getting new breakers. We looked at the educational intercom system. It was an older simplex system. It's pretty much outdated. That's another 15 to 20 year thing. And a lot like technology, there's lots of software updates and things like that they're going to stop doing. Let's see, site lighting. We looked at going and getting all the site and building lighting, replacing it with LED just to cut some of the energy costs. And that was all for the high school.
Yeah, so that's the list of the high school. Before we move to the elementary, do you want to stop and have any conversations or questions before we move on?
I just have a quick one about the intercom system.
Mm-hmm.
Didn't we just replace that a few years ago?
There's one in the main office. Yeah.
Yeah, we just bought
So it
that.
looked like the module we replaced. Oh, you replaced the module? Yeah. Yeah, it looked like it was the original one, so. Yeah. Okay. It just was replaced 2 summers ago. Okay.
Yeah.
On the elementary school, the building does not have a central chilled water plant. It's split into air handlers with remote EX units that sit outside with refrigerant piping between them. So there's no chilled water plant over there. Most of the air handlers have been replaced with the exception of the one main air handler that feeds almost all the classrooms. All the other air handlers for gymnasiums and cafeterias and media, they've all been replaced. They're in great condition. No concerns there. It's just that old unit, and it's the largest one that you have up in the mezzanine. And it's got a DX unit on the roof directly above it. And the air handler is original to the building. And it was built in place. It was an older style back at that time. You just literally started putting the pieces together and building the box around it, and that's how it was done back then. It's essentially using a tunnel that runs under the building that's blowing high pressure air into each of the classrooms to what we would call an induction unit. It has some reheat strips in it with hot water that you then heat to control each individual space. And it was a very popular system in the 60s. From an energy efficiency standpoint, because it's blowing at such high pressure, it's not the most efficient system out there because that fan energy can be pretty large with the high pressure that you're pushing. One way or another, that unit needs to be replaced, whether it be replaced like for like or with a different approach. It's of the age that you're gonna have failures. If you already aren't having to baby that unit, I would be shocked if you weren't having to put some maintenance into fan motors and bearings and dampers that are probably not functioning and they're leaking just based on physical condition. It's past due, and so the budget line to replace that unit with the associated cooling units of about $450,000.
And that's the same type of unit, the high-speed fan blowing through the tunnels?
Yeah, it's like for like. And so it comes back to that previous discussion on bigger picture. If you wanted to start to think about individual vertical unit vents in each classroom, that would then necessitate a chilled water distribution to be put in with chilled water, using the existing hot water and putting a chiller plant in. It's a much bigger bite to take, but it's a path forward. And from a cost standpoint, looking at the high school, you can see there's about 3.8 million plus the 800,000. So to scale that to the elementary school, you're on the order of probably $2.5 million to make that decision. And so I think probably your immediate need is, what do I do about the air handler? It's probably your most immediate need. But again, we're here to advise you that you've got options. It's just which option do you prefer?
So how is the classroom getting cooling now?
So basically that air handler is the single source of cooling for all of the classrooms. And
heating.
And heating. So you've got a boiler plant producing hot water that feeds that air handler along with all the other units that are up in that mezzanine. And then you've got one cooling unit for that air handler. And if that cooling unit goes offline, you lose every classroom essentially.
So there's a cooling coil in this air handler?
Yep.
Okay.
So it's blowing either hot air or cold air. And in cooling mode, if you wanted to have a little bit of heat in one or two of the classrooms to prevent overcooling, that's what that strip heat in the induction unit is doing. It gives you a little bit of space control if you don't want 55-degree air every day.
Okay.
So following that, the water heater plant over at the elementary school, it's aged. It's functional, it's working, but it's aged, and you're on the window where you probably are going to need to replace it within a couple of years. So there's a line item in there for that at $350. The west addition, similar to the high school, was added on about 20 years ago, and similarly it has a dedicated R22 unit. That unit has not been replaced yet, and 22 has been phased out for almost 20 years now, and it's cost prohibitive to try to maintain those units if you have a refrigerant leak. So that'd be the next recommendation, is to replace that unit. And again, because of the code implications, we have to look at the air handler inside the building and replace portions of that air handler, because you can't just replace the outdoor unit alone. The codes now require you to look at that indoor unit and bring it up to the code because of that flammability with the refrigerant. Fire alarm system is item number 4.
So existing, typically life expectancy of fire alarm systems 10 to 15 years. Again, it's a software device issue that they eventually start switching stuff over. Software doesn't get updated. This system is on its own system, which means that you'll have a bank of detectors in an area, and it'll just say there's a fire in that zone, where a newer system will give you more isolated ideas of where everything's at. So we kind of recommended bringing that up to date. Since we were doing less mechanical stuff we gave you a full budget number for replacing all the lights in the school with LED, adding controls, bringing up to code to reduce some of the energy consumption in the building.
I have a question real quick,
Yes.
because you mentioned the fire and previously you mentioned fire suppression. How do we get away with not having a fire suppression system?
I'm gonna point to Jeremy, the architect, talk about grandfathered and codes.
And that's exactly right. So the schools, due to the age, would be grandfathered in. So at the time that they were constructed and designed, they would have been designed to current codes at the time. There was a period of years, and don't ask me to quote this, but in the 40s to 50s where schools did not require a fire suppression system within the corridor. Then they required it, and then they didn't require it again, and now it is required under current design. If you were to do renovations within non-sprinklered spaces, you would be required to do those renovations according to current codes. So without that fire suppression system, we'd be looking at a series of firewalls to help mitigate the spread of fire from one space to the next.
Okay. And then when we add on additions, are those grandfathered in as well, or do those?
So the additions are not grandfathered in. The methodology or the approach to that would be to construct a structurally independent firewall between the existing school and the new addition, and then the new addition would be built to current codes. If that addition happened to fall beneath that 12,000 square foot threshold, that is a IBC code requirement today that would not require fire suppression, but any compartment over that would require that.
Thank you.
Item 6 on the electrical service.
Same with electrical service. Again, you're looking at something that's original to the building. Mechanisms start failing and or seize up, so we recommend the age of it is past its viable date, so we looked at replacement. And same with panel boards. There's still some panel boards that were old and original, just trying to get those updated to make it more manageable for maintenance and stuff.
So the following pages are just our summary of how we put costs together, and Stacy's got more an itemized prioritization. This is more appendix material. But overall, I'll tell you, in the buildings, there's no critical emergencies that we see. There's no, oh my gosh, we have to do this right now type of things. But a lot of these are on a timeline that you probably within the next 5 years have a couple things to do on your refrigerant systems with your DX and your chiller plant, just because you're going to see failures. Your electrical systems, the lights, from an energy efficiency standpoint, there's payback there. And typically, I don't know, I'm gonna shoot a number, tell me if you think I'm out of line. Going from fluorescent to LED, you should see payback within 5 to 10 years in most cases.
Yeah, I would say so. And you also gotta look at the maintenance too. I mean, right now, a typical fluorescent fixture, you're getting 20,000 hours out of with the lamps and the ballast. LED, you're looking in the 70,000 hour range. You'll still have failures. I mean, they're electronics, you'll have random failures, but the also idea is to cut down on your maintenance costs with it. And eventually it's gonna get to the point where you're gonna have a hard time finding the parts to fix. I mean, right now they'll probably keep T8 stuff for a while, but almost everybody's trying to phase out what they can. Halide's already something that's kind of gone by the wayside. So the different lamp technologies are starting to go away from and all going towards the LED stuff.
So that's what we have to share, and I guess Stacy.
I just have one question about the lights and the light controls. So we have a fire station that had all new LED stuff put in, but it was somehow the wiring in that, it was all very low voltage wiring, and there was an issue with the switches. They had to come in and rewire the entire fire station because of it. I want to make just, again, about the reliability.
Yeah.
I mean, well, I assume you guys know what I'm talking about with like the low voltage type controls,
Yeah,
like their little push buttons.
You're running into more of the circuit boards on the equipment versus what's actually wired there.
It was fancier than it needed to be.
Yeah, and our typical design, we still do nominal wire from the switch. We still put 120 volt switches in and all this.
Yeah.
The problem is when you get in the bidding environment, not everybody can provide all that stuff. So to try to make it even so you get the best number for your bids, some of the manufacturers do the push button low voltage switches. that run to the power pack that control the lights. One thing I know a lot, and I'm not knowing what's going on there, some of the manufacturers actually put their control boards in the lights to help control the lights. We stay away from that because I look at it as if that fails, I want you to be able to go to the supplier and get another fixture and swap it in, not have to worry about, oh, well, this is Lithonia and this is their control board, and I have to make sure I have that control board plugged in.
Yeah.
So we don't allow that part. Now the low voltage switching we've had allow just to get an even bidding field, but there's ways we can to create the documents where we can try to avoid that too.
Yeah.
And if that's something that's strongly felt.
Just my personal opinion.
Yeah,
I've
no,
seen nothing good come out of them in the long run. So
you're relying on a little green board and a switch, and that's the problem. And I get it. It's been hard to convert over.
Any other questions for these?
That's all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Pass you up, Brad.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, just a couple of things to think about as we get going here. One is the budget has a little bit of a complexity in it because you're dealing with two different bonds, if you recall. And so I've combined both of those bonds into one sheet to kind of create a whole number to work with. When the rubber kind of meets the road, I think what you'll have to do is you're going to have to split it up into projects that correspond with those bonds. At least I predict that's what the lawyers will tell you. So keep that in mind. I'm oversimplifying a bit here to help make decisions on what scope to pursue to begin with. Another thing to consider here is just the timing before we get into the scope is, you know, if you're thinking about, I mean, you already have the GEO bond money that's left over from what we didn't use with the roof, right? That's being applied to this, as I understand it. And then you have a lease bond that you're in the process of procuring. So let's say we want to have just to give you terms to think of in this is we want to have a summer of 2026 project, for instance. That really means start designing soon, right? Because you have, I think on our original schedule we talked about was May through October for design. Well, then you have to bid it, and then you have to order, 6-7 month lead time chillers. So keep all that in mind as we get started with the real decision-making process here, and just think that there's consequences to putting this off a little bit. That will be up to you all, of course, to figure out what works for you. So with that in mind, let's look quickly at the bond summary. And right now, I'm working backwards from looking at the bottom of the page, $5.6 million, which is what I'm taking as both bonds. And when I take soft costs, which is cost of issuance, design, all these kind of things out of that number, and then also take out of it the roof number that we've already committed. You see that at the top in hard costs, our $668,000 numbers taken out. And by the time you get to calculated backwards to this is the amount of money we have to apply to prime contracts, meaning paying contractors to come and do work. That gives us just shy of $3.3 million to apply to contracts. So that's how we come up with, where we're going to break off the scope. So if you look at the scope prioritization sheet, this is myself in Moak Park and Primary kind of taking an initial stab at it of a recommendation for what you would put at the top of the list. And you can see where the money runs out there with the red line if you choose that. So this scope prioritization is kind of a conversation primer, right? Trying to give you all the information you need to make good decisions with. So this is obviously open for discussion on what you would include in this. Number two, I'll just say I just noticed right before I passed this out that my number 2 line item didn't populate completely. It's too much for the line. That's the fine arts air handler unit there. So, Mike pretty much went through what the importance of the chiller here and the fine arts. Then 3 and 4, electrical service in the high school being outdated and of a concern there. And then 2 air handlers in the elementary, the fire alarm system in the elementary. And number 8, you can see we put in an allowance there, just because we know when we go in and start touching things we can't visualize exactly right now, we know it's going to happen, paint, those kinds of things, and say, hey, we're not going to leave it like this when we start messing with it. So it's kind of an allowance to handle those kinds of issues at 200,000. Maybe you spend 50,000, who knows? We're just trying to be responsible with setting your expectations for what will happen here. And then the other item that gets on here is the high school chilled water mains and corridor lights. And again, that's the real kind of risk part of putting in all that pipe. You don't use it yet, and you have to look forward to when is the next time we're going to be able to get perhaps bond money or otherwise to apply to the next part, because you'll have infrastructure there that's not being really utilized. Okay, so that's the challenging part of the approach here. Any thoughts or considerations for how you would view the prioritization of these items?
I guess I have questions on, how we go through determining those prioritizations, and I guess what does that look like? We get together and we decide what we want to do, what we don't want to do, and meet with you and go back and forth.
Ask questions right now, push back. It's a tough decision. For instance, you could say, well, we're willing to take a risk on the electrical service in high school and put that off for 5 years until perhaps you have a view of when you can get your next GO bond, right? Push that below the red line and it scoots some more up. Mm-hmm. Those are the kind of tough decisions that you have to make. So asking us probing questions, and I say us, I say that generously because it's probably going to be Bob and Mike more than me, but asking probing questions to help you make decisions you're comfortable with in that.
Stacey, if I can jump in to Jamie's point, I'll tell you everything we shared with you tonight. This is a first conversation. Obviously, I would want to just say go and not have any further discussion before we do any design work. I think we got to have several conversations about what are your priorities. Do we understand your priorities? Yeah. And then let's refine those priorities, really boil it down to what is the best scope for you.
My personal thought would be that like the electrical thought, service stuff, and the fire alarm, that we kind of went into this focusing on HVAC. Mm-hmm. I mean, just to simplify the process, if we just go back to the focus on HVAC, if we have to deal with something like if we find out we have an electrical issue, I mean, if God forbid we have an issue, that can be done with some rainy day money. We can make something like that happen. That's a separate item. I would personally think that we would want to focus on our HVAC issues with the thought that that's why we did the bond in the first place. That's just my initial take at it.
Don, do you have anything to throw in?
Yeah.
I guess it's a lot of information thrown at us at once, and I get it. I mean, I don't know, are you expecting something tonight? No. Okay, because I'd like to think of this, I'd like to I don't know, maybe we want to have a public work session. Yeah. And really talk about this and have some conversation.
Yeah.
Cause I'm like you, I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, I just have to
digest
look
a
at
little
it,
bit.
and I don't have, I mean, I'm trying to put all this stuff together and connect it. I mean, it's all good information. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just
I
where
think,
we're gonna do it at.
Primary's document's important for you to understand what's going on.
Right, totally.
And this, my document's a working document, right? It's, I'm gonna move it around however we all decide is the best way to do it. And that's gonna give us how far we can get into that scope with the amount of money you all have available. So.
Can we proceed with this and decide that we're gonna do a work session on this? I think that's probably I think that's probably mandatory. So let's proceed, get questions, things knowing that we're gonna get back together sometime in the near future, next couple weeks. Next month.
Look at this chart on here. When do you guys need something to put out or to start this?
Well,
or what's the date we're trying to hit?
It's like I said originally, and this is kind of the schedule that I put forward before there was a designer involved, was design May through October. So that was the goal, but that's not written in stone, it's written on paper, right?
Yeah.
So it's gotta be what works for you all.
So if we had something for you in May or June, it'd be doable, close?
What I'll give you a caution is when it comes to bidding, it pushes you, let's say if you start in May, you can be done in October, and that fits really good for bidding in November. It gets tough to bid when you cross Thanksgiving and then you get into Christmas and all that takes place. It really slows the process down. So it's good to hit before that, but if you can't, you can't, and you just deal with it. Just throwing that consequence out.
This is not my expertise, and I'm not gonna pretend like it is, but what I do wanna say out loud to all of us is going forward, I mean, we're hearing things, phased out 20 years ago. We're hearing things that were put in when we were all in elementary school. Going forward, it is our responsibility to make sure that we have plans to replace these things on a schedule or maintain these things on a schedule. It's our job as board members to push for that. It's your job to push for that. It's all of our job to push that we are actually maintaining and making sure that all of these things are being upkept, rather than sitting here looking at parts that were put in when we were in grade school. I'm not trying to be mean, I'm just.
Before our work session.
Blake, if I could speak for a second, I agree with you, Blake. I'm not sure Jamie and I would appreciate the thought that we were in elementary when these were installed. I'm not sure it's true.
93?
All right. But, I would like for us, the workshop is a great idea. I would like for us to revisit what we're trying to accomplish. I'm hearing a little bit of replacing same for same. I'm not thrilled with that. I would like to understand, think of it as a business case of some of these upgrades. There has to be more than a couple points here in energy savings available to us. We need to find that. We need to find what those savings are in utility costs and maintenance costs and service costs as we change these systems instead of just replacing these systems. So I would like for us to work through that to see what that means. I'm not requesting a giant engineering study for this, but there's some market information available out there that can be utilized to help us make some of these decisions. So that's my statement.
For some information that I would like to see personally for the work session, talking about those controls, what some options are in that, because in this, there's over $1 million in controls alone. I know controls are expensive, but just some options there, like what is a little, because I understand that there is some energy savings when you can do some of the scheduling and some of the more advanced things, but also when the teacher leaves the classroom, if they turn it down, that does something too. So there's a give and a take to that. I mean, I just want to see some of that options laid out. Same with the lighting.
It is more as a budget, isn't it? And then once we got to that point, we could put in the specs whatever we were wanting. So
well, just with these anticipated costs, if there was an anticipated that and the other, I assume that includes the controls, which
Yeah.
there's variability in what kind of controls you can get.
Let me just take a step back here too, and I kind of skipped the second page of this document that I gave you, just to remind you where we're all at. So, you know, if you look at the roofing part of it, because so there's two different things going on here. We're clear down to construction costs there, right? We've already bid it. The contract's going to be coming soon. With this bid phase, or this part of the project that we're talking about tonight, we're still clear at the top at conceptual. So as we start talking about things, and even as design is released and say we're going, there's still going to be a narrowing down process as we go through that of systems and also cost to get us to where we want to go. So all of the minutia of decisions aren't made at the conceptual phase. So it's a part of that conversation that narrows down. So absolutely, to your point, that's going to happen, you know, along the way.
So what you guys, this is just budget, and then once we start the design process, and we say, okay, we are gonna do this portion of it, you guys will present us your plans or whatever, and I don't.
It'll come in phases.
Yeah.
So right now, we're speaking conceptually. There's no drawings, there's no specifications, right? So the work session will kind of help ferret out what you all are most comfortable with in going forward, and then you begin. And then so what happens is we begin putting together, or I should, again, not we, Primary and Mopar, begin putting together design documents.
Yeah.
And, you know, you'll all have a chance to review those at the schematic phase, which is still kind of broad.
Yeah.
And you'll speak into that at that point and say,
Okay.
yes, no, like that, let's adjust here and so forth.
Yeah.
And at the same time, they give me the documents and I take a closer budget look at it.
Mm-hmm.
Say, where are we at? You know, what's happened with tariffs in the last couple of months, whatever, you know.
Yeah.
So you all will be, you or a committee of you, maybe, however you decide to do it, will be involved in that process.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not going to arrive completed documents and you have no idea how we got there, right? You'll be involved in it.
So basically by May, you just need to know roughly our general ideas what we're wanting to hit here.
Yeah, I think scope, and then a couple of the big questions we want to probably tackle in the work session is, are we gonna go for the 4-pipe system in the high school? You know, that's a big question. That's a hard decision for you all to make.
Yep.
So we're just trying to give you the kind of information you need to make that decision. It's a tough decision, but it's going to matter a lot. That kind of thing is going to matter a lot.
What you mean is we're gonna put $800,000 into something that we're not gonna use until a later phase.
That's right.
5 years.
So part of the conversation on your all's part then that I'm not privy to is, when's the next time you can get money?
Yeah.
You know, that's a big consideration for you all to take into account.
If it's something we can't fit it in, I mean, I don't know.
You're just biting a chunk out of the pie. I mean, it's taking care of a problem later that we won't have to do later.
Right, but if it doesn't get done.
There's no way we can do the unit ventilators, right? That's our whole budget right there.
But the unit ventilator aspect of it, once your infrastructure is there, you can start taking bites of that.
We can
like 4 classrooms per summer or something like that.
Yeah. Okay. But the mains would be there to connect to those.
That's right.
Yeah. So I mean, it's an investment.
Which we've done before. Together we've done that
improvement
in other buildings. So.
Yeah. But you're taking a lot of our budget for investment.
Yeah.
You're not seeing the reward yet of it.
Right.
So
if I can ask a quick question, you're talking about this as budgetary. We have budgetary numbers for roofing. We ended up being 40% high. Is that expected here as well?
No, it's not expected.
But we can cross the fingers.
We do. I just say this is there's some aspects of this that are conservative, and just to be frank, a job that Primary and Tecton both worked on together with unit ventilators in classrooms that we're doing in phases, a few per summer for a school. You know, Mike's number was a little higher than what my number is for that particular job, but you know, things are inflating. We're concerned about everything going on, so we're trying to be conservative with the number here in this.
I'd much rather come up anticipated
Yeah.
design.
Yeah, I mean, it's same, it's like on the roofing,
Better
same
be
thing.
opposite. Yeah.
You know, roofing, you kind of think worst case scenario is where we started out. And then we go do the inspection and the infrared and the bores and try to narrow in on what's going on there. Yeah.
And then we can also, if we do feel like we're being conservative, we could throw an alternate or something on there.
Absolutely.
To get a price for it.
We
And then you either
usually,
accept it or you don't, type deal.
we usually recommend that.
Yeah.
So if you look at this document, there's a red line. So we usually design a couple of items past the red line so that we can take advantage of those circumstances.
Yeah, they'll give us a price on it during bid time, and if we're below budget,
Yeah.
you can accept alternate 1 or alternate 3 or.
Yeah.
And do a little bit more if it did come under budget.
And one of our alternates too, depending on how it could work out, I mean, we do have the athletic complex that has those issues that need to be addressed too. So I mean, wherever that falls into the priority list, I mean.
Stacey, I have a question for you. So this list is done in priority, but it's done in priority to also fit in the budget too, correct?
Yeah.
Are there things that are up here above the red line that could actually be below? Or like that, the priority isn't quite as high, but it fits within the money,
Right, so this priority list is us talking before we get to you.
Got it.
Starting somewhere.
Okay.
It's provoking the conversation.
Okay.
But again, you might say, well, electrical is something we're gonna do out a rainy day if it bites us, right? So
Yeah.
we want number 10 and number 11, these 2 high school air handling units, we wanna get them done in the project right now. So we're gonna take that risk on electrical, make sure those 2 items get scooted up above the red line.
Yep.
Right?
Okay.
So that's the kind of conversations we need to have.
Got it.
Yep.
Okay.
Just in that, you're talking about number 3, number 4, and possibly number 7, that would be.
That's what I'm saying. They look like they're high priority.
Yeah.
But
that's only
they may
our
not
opinion.
be.
That's
Okay.
our opinion, and we don't
Got it.
necessarily know everything you know, right?
Okay.
Which everything you know means what you're comfortable with, when you're getting money next, how much money you have in a rainy day. There's a lot of things that you all know that have to be in your decision-making process.
I think you already answered this, I think, but is there anything in here that's like, you gotta get this done, you gotta get it done now? Because it's gonna,
I think
go
Mike,
on us.
he can correct me if I'm wrong, but Mike's like, no, you're not gonna be shut down tomorrow. But like, the chiller is something you really shouldn't probably put off because that's 7 months after it's designed. So if something goes down with that right now, you've gotta design it, and then you've gotta contract it, bid it, then contract it, and then wait 7 months, right? So it's not a good thing to be at
That's
risk.
the high school chiller, the number 1, okay.
Yeah, that's why it's at the top.
The elementary doesn't have a chiller.
And with chiller projects, you can take 2 different approaches when you're talking about project schedule. Some people will say, hey, I want to focus and do that one in the winter time when we're not using it and have them start in December, try to get it ready for spring. Others will say, we're just going to shut cooling off and take the summer and just be without cooling all summer long, which.
I'm guessing John, I like that.
We do.
High school that's used by the community, that's much more difficult.
Yeah.
So you can either option, but there's a sequence that some of these items were the best time of year.
Yeah.
For others.
Makes sense.
We do it all the time. I'm in the mechanical trade, and we do it in the summer all the time. Typically, the office is off a DX unit. The only people you get complaining is the custodians. So.
Oh no, those basketball girls that are doing the open gyms through the summer might start complaining.
Well, they could be in the field house, it's on the.
If you're doing the
That's
winter,
true.
you're fighting the kids.
Right. How big a deal would that be as far as having problems with kids being in the building while working on chiller?
The field house is separate, it's new, they could utilize that facility. And so would the weight room.
But.
Yeah.
The other thing you do is you time it right, and if, I don't know the location of chiller, but if it's, like, if you gotta set a crane or something, you time it right, you say, hey, this is gonna happen over the Christmas break. You know, you can make plans like that to work out things.
Well, it sounds like we need to schedule.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know, I need to think.
Yeah.
I need to
I'm
think and
thinking early
digest and.
May at some point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cause we got a lot coming up in 2 weeks.
Yeah.
First week in May.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A few things. So.
Yeah, I mean, or even around the board meeting or something, but yeah.
You can do a work session before or after the next board meeting.
I mean, if there's things that need to be, if we need to try to approve something in that board meeting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
I don't think you necessarily have to approve anything yet. This time don't have to get approved.
The only challenge to that is if you don't approve something at that board meeting, whenever you decide you're approving it at the next board meeting, right? So you're talking another month.
So the list
I'm just
that we
throwing that out
provide
there.
is board approved?
What's that?
The list that we provide to you to start designing is board approved? I mean, we're locked in like that? Or, I'm just trying to get the process.
Yeah.
I assumed we just kind of collectively gave you a list, cause we're not really signing
You're
off.
probably gonna want a board decision to proceed with design.
If we had a work session the week before the board meeting, then we could have all that put together, get some priorities done, and if there's some final things they need to tweak or get us prior to the board meeting, then we could maybe do it. Does that sound about?
But are we spending money on this part here yet? Is this gonna be like
That's already approved. For this part, you've already got proposals that you've signed, right? So what you're getting right here. What will follow though is next will be a proposal from the design team and a contract to actually do the design. This has been an assessment.
So that's what you're wanting in May?
If we could get there, but I don't know. I'm not gonna push you and say it has to be done.
Mm-hmm.
I'm only cautioning you.
The bid date.
Yeah.
We could always have a second meeting in May too.
We could do a work session at the end of April.
Yeah.
I support that.
I agree.
Do a work session towards the end of April and then go from there.
Yeah, because now we all have to be here on all of those meetings. I mean, I'm gonna be, but I mean.
Yeah. That's
Yeah, I prefer it not be before the board meeting, the work session.
Yeah.
Like the same day.
Yeah, unless it's our second work session and we're just trying to solidify some things.
Well, it'd probably be after.
Yeah.
We're starting at 5:30, it'd be after.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh.
That way you're not holding up the meeting if it goes up.
Yeah.
We'll just have to get a date.
Yeah. I'll send some dates out.
Yeah.
For April, maybe that last week of April. Okay.
Anything else?
You guys anything else?
No, thank you guys.
Thank you guys.
I
Yeah, I
appreciate
appreciate
it.
it. You gave us a lot. Thanks for giving us a lot to think about.
Thank you.
I'm really sorry, but can we take like a 2-minute intermission?
Intermissions.
I don't think I've ever done an intermission before. Yeah.
Sure.
I know
2 hours
John's
deep,
just
so.
dying to get up and speak, but.
What's up?
That's not your fine.
Brad, I will send you this PDF.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
Hey, yep. I'll be in touch, okay?
Thank you, appreciate it.
What? Good stuff, huh?
There's a lot there. I really don't think that, I mean, yes, the electrical's important, but.
Right.
Same
I'm glad
with the
they did it.
alarm system.
I'm glad they did it instead of something else.
stuff to think about, especially the LED lighting, because I don't.
LED, I think LED lighting would be a good one. I mean, Bobby, last time we talked, I know the electric bill is just out of hand. That's the only way to get better. You know.
All of a sudden, sitting here drinking coffee.
It's one of those things that, you know, the whole thing.
I shall not be paid to sleep, but that's what I
So
grow
long,
up.
I need to pay off.
Still, you never do it.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Take them all up.
Yeah, right back.
Getting back at it.
All right.
Take a
Here's my agenda here. Oh yeah, SAT results from Mr. Tyndall. The next presentation.
All right. All right, guys. Well, I'm going to preface this with the SAT data has not been fully disclosed or released. There is an embargo period on results in comparison to state levels as well as other schools, so I cannot provide that data to you today. But we did take this at the beginning of March, and we got these results back last week. So I kind of want to look at these, kind of provide you with some takeaways and some items that we are already currently addressing and we've already been in discussion. So on the left box there on the side of your paper is language arts. The full SAT is out of 1,600. Each section is out of 800. The cut score, which is designed by College Board as a college level entry score, is 480 for language arts. So that is what the cut score is. That is what I used in identifying all these benchmarks. All right. So I have broken it down into cohort, male, female, academic honors, technical honors, and pathway students, so that you can kind of see where we're going there. And when I talk about focuses and goals, you'll be able to see that data. So in the cohort, we had 40 kids who we have results back for in the 11th grade. 21 of those students met the cut score. I'm not going to say passed because it's not pass fail. Okay, it is met the cut score. That is college level entry. All right, that is 53% of our students in the 11th grade. 9 out of 17 females, 12 out of 23 males. Our academic honor students, who we deem to be our 4-year college-bound students, 13 out of 14 met that cut score. And then our technical honor students, who aren't necessarily academic honors, but they'll earn technical honors through Blue River career programs, 1 out of 2 met the cut score of 480. And then our pathway students, who are not academic honors track, they are at 7 out of 24 that met the 480 cut score. Okay. In the right column, you'll see math, possible score 800. And what I want to note here is that the cut score is actually 530 for math, which is determined by College Board as the college level entry score that they need. Okay, so when you look at that, our cohort 4 out of 40, 10% pass there. No females, 4 males, 4 of our 14 academic honors, 0 out of 2 technical honors, and 0 out of 24 pathway students met that benchmark. Okay, so as we've had discussions at the beginning of the year with iLearn and math being an inconsistency and an area of weakness or improvement, we see that at the 11th grade SAT level as well. All right, so when I look at key takeaways, language arts were very strong, 93%. All but one of our students who we deemed to be 4 years college bound met that cut score of 480. Language arts as a whole increased by 12 points over last year. All right, so there is growth there. Math score, obviously a significant targeted area for us moving forward. 29% of 4-year college-bound students met the state benchmark. I will preface that if math had the same benchmark as language arts, we would have doubled that score. 4 more students would have met that cut score, but because it is 530, that's where we're at with the 4. And then average math scores did increase by 11 points from last year's SAT scores as well. So if you're going to look at anything that is a positive, is that we are continuing to grow, and we know that it's not going to jump from 4 to 14 to 23 over the course of a year. So we're going to look at growth goals and focusing on growth and not necessarily how many at this point, because it wouldn't make sense to go from 10% to 50% in math. Okay, we like to sustain where we're at, definitely with language arts, and continue the good work we're doing there. And then where do we go here from here in math? One, we have implemented the On to College program, which is a PSAT, SAT, ACT prep program that exposes students to those kinds of questions, practice questions. There are interactive videos that teach them specific things. We did a couple prep sessions before this SAT program. I will tell you that almost every student who attended those SAT prep programs grew from their PSAT to the SAT significantly. Okay, so from my early, we just purchased it in February, from my early onset of data, that is going to be something that is going to be a game changer for us if we continue to implement it correctly. All right, we want to monitor that student growth from PSAT every fall in grades 9 through 12. So how are they growing from 9 to 10, 10 to 11, and then obviously, sorry, I put 9 through 12, they don't take it in 12th grade. And then 11th grade, obviously, where are they at that fall, those fall scores, so that we can prepare them for that SAT in March of their junior year. All right, focusing on the growth, especially in math. Language arts, we're really good where we're at. We need to maintain that, okay? But that math, obviously, is where we want to target that growth for individual students, all right? Obviously, we've been talking about curriculum adoption. Our math team is actually going to get in some classrooms in the Franklin Community School Corporation who uses the program. They're doing that this month. So I'm hoping to be able to come to you with a presentation in May to be able to adopt both ELA and math programs, okay, curriculums. All right, what kind of questions do we have? After listening to all that data you had, okay?
Yeah, whenever you're able to get the surrounding schools data.
It's going to be July. That is when they're set to vote on it to lift the embargo.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, just make sure we get that back.
Yep, not a problem.
We've already talked, you're gonna come back and present that later on, so.
Yep.
Yep.
Yeah, and that would probably be with iLearn data, so.
All right. So I am very glad to see that you already are working on the growth. Where do you think our failure is?
Curriculum. I mean, our textbooks are, the newest textbook we have is prior to 2012. And that's just one set of textbooks. I couldn't tell you how far back they actually go. The standards have changed in 2012, 2016, 2018, 2021, and 2023. I mean, they've completely, we're not teaching the same processes of math because the textbooks aren't teaching the process and how to learn it. So, I mean, it's just outdated.
And that's something we're working on to start doing curriculum, like we're supposed to every year, doing some type of curriculum.
Yep. Put it on a rotation.
Yes.
Remember I talked about it on the night with the language arts.
And that's at elementary and high school.
That'd be, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that'd be on a rotation.
Yeah, and unfortunately, we're in a place right now where we need both ELA and math. It's essential. So we're probably going to look at adoption for both this year, but then we will definitely get on a rotation where we're not going to have to do 2 in 1 year. It would be, like this year was ELA, so ELA will be another 6 years. Math was last year, I believe, is it 2 years ago? So we'll get it on the same rotation every single year, so you're not spending the loads of money on 2 programs and then not spending anything the next year. Does that make sense?
And just to double check on that, the curriculum packages that comes out of our education fund.
Correct.
And let me stress too that the curriculum, whatever curriculum we choose, that's not going to be the magic solution.
Right.
In my mind, the magic solution is the instruction that they're getting from that. So we got to make sure we give our teachers the resources they need and help them through PD, through whatever, to make sure that they're getting what they need. Because it's not fair to give someone curriculum and say, okay, make it work now. We have to make sure we're giving them what they need to be successful.
And we have a very
whatever
young
that
math
is, so,
department.
yeah.
We have a lot of inexperience in the math department, and these are the tools and resources they're gonna need to be successful. So.
Yeah, so
It's a good
John,
first step.
similar to elementary, as you put together the quotes for those packages, you're looking to include as options all the bells and whistles and teacher instruction.
Yep, and I will say I met with our sales, or I don't want to call her sales rep, but our representative last week, and you know, those bells and whistles that you're going to get in the elementary aren't necessarily prevalent at the high school, because you're not looking at basic level skills and manipulatives and those types of things. So really what you're getting at the secondary level is textbook, interactive workbook, and then the access to the online program, which is going to have the interactive piece online.
And then also the professional development portion.
Correct,
too,
and then the
correct?
professional development will come with that as well, yes.
It's been a long time since I've taken SATs, but do these guys have another chance, or is this, what happens from here with these students?
So this is state mandated,
Yeah.
okay? So we will look at these, and those kiddos who are academic honors who are going to college, we are going to push them to take it again. It is not funded through the state, so they would have to pay on their own. But we would encourage them to either take it this summer or in the fall before they start applying for colleges.
To get a better score?
Yes.
Okay.
And so they take the best ones. So if they pass this and then they up their math score the next time, and maybe they don't get as good a score in the ELA, they still get to use the highest score and the highest score in math.
Okay.
Okay. And the best thing about this is that On to College program is available to them whether they're here or they're at home. So they can utilize that program to continue to work towards taking that in the summer and the fall.
So if these kids want it, they have a chance?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Absolutely.
How much is that cost burden to them?
You have a junior?
I think it's
It used to be over $100. I think they've decreased the price of it a little bit, but I'd say it's pretty well around that $100 mark.
Do we have any resources if that was a limitation or preventative to any of them?
There is. So they are labeled, if they are receiving assistance in other parts of the schooling, they would also receive funding assistance through that as well, through College Board. And that is all things that we report to them, and they would have access to when they go and sign up individually.
Any other incentive? Are there any incentives that you guys are looking at to them? I mean, other than just saying to pat on the back. I mean, curious.
I mean, that's the hard part too, is because, I mean, right now, the focus, you know, when it's a college level entry exam, our focus is on those kids that are going to utilize the SAT you know, for their continuation of schooling. So, you know, how do you incentivize a small group of kids and not everybody else?
Mm-hmm. Right.
Especially if it costs money and they have zero, like if they're gonna go into a trade.
Right.
Yeah,
They're
some of
not
these kids
gonna
don't care about
redo
the
it.
SAT.
Oh yeah, I get it. I mean,
What
all
are
of
the
those
pathways?
kids, I get it.
Yeah.
But
The pathway, what?
Those are your career based. So Blue River, all those are career based. CTE concentrators.
So academic honors
like
is
a
the
field
ones
trip
that
for the
you
ones
see
that pass or something.
that are planning to go.
Correct. Yeah.
John, on the data available to you, math can be kind of a broad term. Were there certain aspects or certain subsets of math that they struggled on more than others?
So we do not have that data yet. We do not have access to the broken down data. That'll come later. But once we get that, yes, we would be able to see which subscores were higher than others. I will say in years past, a large part is algebra, and then there's advanced math. And those are, you know, our kids that are not meeting advanced math is because they're not taking pre-calc and algebra too. So like,
That help us
there's two
our focus in certain areas.
Right, and then that's the hard part.
Specific struggles were.
Correct, yeah, and so we would get that data for PSAT and SAT so we can hone in on that. And the best part about that On to College and all those different ones is they will have specific questions or specific lessons that are geared towards that specific subset of scores. And difficulty too. So if a student's at a lower level, they can actually have a different set of questions than somebody who's at a higher level, because you're pushing them to get their score higher, whereas you're just trying to break the regular questions with maybe a student down here. So there's different levels at which they can grow too. And again, I'm always open. If you guys have any questions that come up and you're looking at the data, feel free to reach out to me. Obviously, when the rest of the data is lifted, they lift the embargo, we would be able to present some more of that probably in either July or August.
So are there any other assessments that this grade level does, or is it just?
It's PSAT. So PSAT 9, 10, 11, and we can use that growth every year to measure where they're at.
What were your initial thoughts when you saw the data for the math?
Based on what I have had in iLearn the past couple of years, it's been around that 10 to 12%. So I wasn't shocked.
The improvement's great.
Correct. And when you look at from last year, the SAT, we did grow by 11 points. I would like to triple that number, because based on what I see, if we move kids a grade level, it's approximately 35 to 40 points. So if we can be in that 30 to 35 range, I feel like that would be a whole level of grade movement or growth for kiddos. And obviously some are going to be able to meet that, but then some others who are higher would not have as much growth because they don't have as much room to grow. And obviously it gets very difficult when you get above the 550 mark.
Do you think curriculum and inexperienced teachers are the biggest roadblock currently that you're seeing?
So when you gain access to the rest of the data, can we still look at like academic honors kids pulled out separately and the data from those kids to see where they're?
I would prefer that. Okay. Because I don't want to put everybody to the wayside that are not academic honors, because there's all validity in these numbers. I mean, we see that with ELA. I mean, over 53% of our students met the cut score. So we're capable. Okay, but with as low a score as 10% is, I think we need to focus in on those students that we're going to be able to make the biggest gains with immediately, and that's our college-bound kiddos. And they're the ones that need it the most. I mean, especially they're going to need a specific level of math to be able to be successful in college.
And yes, and I think those are the ones that have taken all of these math courses. And so where did they stop growing, I think is the question that I have.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
All right, on to personnel. I have, I'm gonna just do all these together if that's okay. You guys good with that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
First we have, the termination of Ryan Gearman, speech assistant, as of March 24th. We have resignation of Kyler Reamer, as elementary teacher at the end of the 24-25 school year, and then resignation of Kyler Reamer as head high school volleyball coach at the end of the 24-25 school year.
I'll make a motion to approve these resignations, terminations.
I'll second.
All those in favor? 6-0.
I have no recommendations to hire tonight. I do have superintendent comments. I have a brief presentation that I want to give. I'll try to keep it as short as I can here. I want to talk to you a little bit about the financial side. Just Bonnie and I are meeting quarterly with Jay from Baker Tilly, and we'll just go over some financial things that show us where we're at. And I'm planning to present these to you when we get those. After we meet with Jay, or after we can understand what's going on, and have a meeting with you and present them to the public as well. So, so we're going to talk about our education operations fund and the performance of both. We'll start first with our education fund. The biggest thing, I guess, that I want to point out here is that our revenues in education were 11.9%, and it should say compared to 2023. But our expenditures increased by 25%. And a lot of that, the expenditures is increasing, in my mind, a lot of it, and we'll see it later on, is due to some salary increases that we had, which makes sense that we're going to increase because the increases were quite large at the time. So we're actually we're actually in a budget deficit of $415,000. So basically, we spent $415,000 more than we brought in our education fund, which isn't horrible because we have a large cash balance in our education fund too. So that kind of offsets that some.
Do you want us to ask questions while you're doing it? Or
Yeah, go ahead.
So looking forward with that deficit, are we looking at being in
We're going to be in a deficit again, and the reason why is because we're buying curricular materials that haven't been purchased. And I think that's going to be a reason. We've also created 2 more teaching positions, which is going to impact that as well. I think the hope is we can spend some money now, but we've got to eventually get to where we're plateauing, right? Where we aren't just continually eating into that. But we do have some leeway right now too.
Those expenditures is that including our transfer?
You remember if it's including transfer?
I think he out.
What's that?
I don't think he included that.
I don't think he did either.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm just curious. I mean,
I don't think it is.
If it is, then that's different.
It's not figured in the next slide that I have.
Okay.
Yeah. So, one thing to keep in mind here, the curriculum materials, that was in a separate fund before, and now it's no longer in a separate fund. It actually goes into our education fund, our education cash balance. So that's money that we didn't have in education that was in another area, and now it's brought into this area. And it'll factor in another sheet that I'm going to show you. I'll address that a little bit later on. We also have earned interest too. We had $113,000 of earned interest. That's something that you can't rely on because it all depends on interest rates and on what we're going through. So just to keep that in mind. We look at the history of the expenditures and the different accounts that we have. As you can see, the 100s account, those are our salaries. And if you look at the salaries, you can see that there was quite a jump from 2023 to 2024, as well as the 200s are our benefits, and our benefits increased as well. So that would explain some of that jump. If we look at our cash balance and what our cash balance is, where it's at right now, you can see right now that we started off in December of 23 at 3.3 million, and we ended December of 24 at 2.9 million. So that just shows what our cash balance is. You see those red, yellow, and green lines there? That's what you're kind of shooting for, to be right around those marks. As you can see, our cash balance is still way above that, which is good. But it's also, we also have to be cognizant of the fact that we can't continually be spending $400,000 more than what we're bringing in every year. So the 30.
It's safe to categorize this as we're playing catch up.
Yeah, I think that's some of it. We just have to play catch up the right way, and don't put ourselves in a bind to where we catch up and then we're in trouble. So
overshoot the land.
Correct.
Yeah, we don't overshoot the land. Good point. So let's look at our operations fund. Our operations fund, the deficit wasn't quite as high as the other one. Revenue increased by 6.1%, and then our expenditures increased by 6.4%. So our expenditures were a little bit higher, increased a little bit more rate than our revenues did, and we were at a budget deficit there of $66.9 thousand. So, and I can explain a little bit of that as well as we go forward. Yeah.
Does that include our transfer?
It would have to. I would think.
I would think it does.
I mean, if you're talking about a budget deficit of 66,000.
Well, I think I think it does. Yeah.
Because we transfer about
Yeah, I think
a year, something like that.
What's more important is when we look at the next slide, we look at see how are we spending our money, where are we losing that money. Again, salaries and benefits are an area that we continually increase because we gave increases to our our certified, not our non-certified staff had some increases as well. I will also say part of that too is and this doesn't explain all of it, but we were paying for an interim superintendent at the same time where we were paying another superintendent's contract out. So that's gonna be a little bit of that as well. The area there that stuck out to me though is the 500s. The 500 account has continued to grow, and Bonnie and I kind of racked our brain and tried to figure out exactly what that was and what area that was. And what it is, it's contracted bus drivers, and what we're spending in contracted bus drivers. I will tell you that we have bus drivers that are driving. We're paying them extra because they're driving over the mileage that's in their contract. And that's something that we need to be cognizant of, because I think there may be ways to not spend so much money.
So how
with
is
our
that?
extra mileage.
Is that because of their route being
It's
too
because
much?
of the route. We have some drivers that are actually driving across district lines into other districts, and that's a hike. And that's costing us money. Costing us quite a bit of money.
Is it so that, is it the mileage regardless of whether they go out of district or not, or is?
Yeah, it's
For their contract, they get paid, everyone gets paid 45 miles a day. If they go over 45 miles, they get paid per mile.
Okay, but it doesn't matter where those 45 miles are at.
No.
It doesn't, no.
And do they pick their route, correct?
No.
No, we pick the route for them? Okay.
And we're working on a process to pick the routes maybe a little bit more strategically better. Just I think one thing I think we need to be cognizant of, what I'm aware of is that are we getting the most bang for our buck by driving across district lines and picking up someone in another district?
But those 45 miles, that's at the start of the route, not from leave home.
It's at the start of the route. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
I mean, is that your consideration, is to stop sending a bus to Walmart?
That's not my consideration right now at all.
Okay.
Are we
I think it's something
also
we need to consider though.
in this boat because we've lost a couple of bus drivers, and so we've had to, do we have the full number that we started with?
We don't have the full number that we started with, and I'm thinking that may be saving us some money right now. That we don't have as many routes.
When's the next route?
One thing that I want to look at too is as we have maybe retirements or people no longer driving for us, is that route needed, or can we reassess the routes to try to make up for that too? Yep. So
Do you know how many overage miles we have per day or week, or?
I don't know right off the top of my head. I can get that number for you though, but I don't know what it is right off the top of my head. Yeah, I know it's, without going into more depth, I know with OneDrive it's very significant. And yeah.
Okay. Do you have these route maps broken down somewhere? And
we have a routing software right now that we've possessed for the last 2 or 3 years. I'm not sure it's been used. So Jessica and I are in the process right now of learning that software and trying to use that to harness our ability to make sure we're spending money appropriately. Does that make sense?
Comparatively, all the routes made sense if you were looking at them.
Yeah.
Logistically on a map.
Mm-hmm. That's what I'm working through right now. Yeah.
When are those contracts up, or when do they bid?
I don't remember when.
They originally bid 2 years ago, but they were given the option of 1, 2, or 4 years when they signed them. So
It's all different.
it's all different for everyone, but the price is set for the 4-year term. So we have 2 more years on that.
Yeah. And I also don't want anyone to think that I'm disparaging our drivers, because our drivers are great people. They're doing a good job. They care about kids. They care about Southwestern too. But it's just, I think it's an area we have to look at, along with, like I said, the salaries and benefits in here too.
So the one that's going, or multiple, I don't know, that are going outside of our district, are they actually going to home addresses, or is there just the bus stop?
I know there's a bus stop, and I know of one home address that they're going to. So that's the operation fund budget. This one looks a lot more crazy, doesn't it? And this is the reason why is because we get our tax checks from our what do I want to say?
The county.
From the county?
Yeah, from the county. We get them twice a year, so that's why it looks like this. So we get a check, we spend the money, and then we wait till we get the next check, and then it goes back up. So that, and it's pretty common. That what we want to really look at is the beginning and the end here. You know, we're at 437,000, and we ended at 391,000 in our cash balance there.
So at the end where we're at now, all the way to right there.
That's it. That would have been in December. Yeah, at the end of December is where we would have been at the right. Yep.
So it's low, but it's not. I mean, it's still.
We're in the yellow.
We're in the yellow.
We're starting to finish it in the yellow.
Yeah.
I mean, it's ideally we could get a little better, but it's not like it's outside the wheelhouse.
It's not like super concerning, but it's something we definitely want to keep an eye on. We want to try to stop the bleed.
Right.
As much as possible. The last area I want to look at is our total operating funds. This is everything together. This is what we have: cash balance in our education fund, operations fund, rainy day, our construction fund.
I think just those first three.
Just the first is not construction.
I don't think so.
Okay. And this is where we're at. So our cash balance is at 5.3 million in December 23, and we ended up at 4.58 million. So we actually decreased by 800,000, right around 800,000, our overall cash balance. You probably wonder why is that? Because our cash balance went down in education 4, and it went down in operations 60, but we also spent rainy day money on our buses, and so that would account for that, the rest of that money as well. So that's kind of where our cash, again, overall, our operating funds cash balance is good. We're sitting good. However, we do have less this year than we had last year at this time. So I think it's important to know that and keep an eye on that. And this is brought to us by Baker Tilly when we met with them. The next thing I want to talk about real quick, I'm going to keep it too long. Just want to talk about the proposed changes from Senate Bill 1 and what this is going to do to our operations fund and the money we're going to get from our levy changes. So current law, based where it is right now, the top line is what we should be getting in 2026, 2027, 2028. This is under the current constraints. So it's a 4% change, 4.2% change, 3.9% change every year. If the proposed Senate Bill 1 goes in effect, instead of getting the $2.6 million in 26, we'll actually be getting $2.5 million. And actually decrease our levy will actually decrease. It'll go from 2.52 million to 2.51 million. And then you can see in 2027 we'll be at 2.6 million, 2028 at 2.7 million. And then the next line there talks about it describes how much less it is from what we were projected from our baseline under current law compared to what we'll get through Senate Bill 1. So you can see in every area we're going to be receiving about $100,000 less than what we would have gotten had Senate Bill 1 not gone through. It hasn't gone through yet. So, and then the percent change just is the baseline of what the baseline was, what we thought we were going to get, and what we're going to get to Senate Bill 1. Now the good news is, if there is good news, in 2026, we're going to notice a 0.3% increase from the year before from 2025. But then the next 2 years, we're going to get back at a 4.3% increase and a 4.1% increase. So that's positive, but you can see it's going to have an impact on our tax revenues and what we're gonna get from property taxes.
I
You
have
guys
a
have any
question.
questions about that?
Well, I have a
Or
question while
statements?
we're on legislation.
Yeah.
So the legislation that makes school board members have to run as partisan.
Yeah.
I'm assuming, I didn't even look at it. I am assuming that that also means that we now have to sign up to run the same time as those running in the primary, that we'll have to run in the primary.
I don't know.
Okay.
I really don't know where that stands. I think.
I didn't think the sign up time changed.
Yeah, Blake, I didn't see a change in that, I think I saw something
Okay.
that we will not be part of primary.
I do know I reached out to our state rep, and questioned, because as it stands right now, like when we used to have a member resign, the school board would get to vote on who got to go into that seat. So I questioned, with it going partisan, how does that work? Is it the Republican Party that, or Democratic Party or whatever, that would caucus somebody in? And he said yes, unless you were to run as an independent, and then he believes it would still be the school board that got to caucus that seat, which I thought was weird, but
yeah,
I don't know how they would
question that.
I don't know how they would know, I guess. I mean, if the people up there were, I don't know how that process would even work.
Yeah.
I think there's a ton of kinks to work out.
Right.
I
seems like
almost state a personal opinion right here.
Right.
I feel like this turns it very political. I feel like this makes it so that political parties can now control who is sitting on our school boards. And so if someone was to resign, it would then allow for the placement of people just looking for a foot in the door to run for a political seat in the future, rather than those that truly care about sitting here. But I will get off of my soapbox on that. I will say that is less scary than I was initially thinking.
It's changed a lot.
Yeah.
It's changed a lot from when it was first released. Yeah. So we're sitting a lot better than we were before. So yeah.
Well, when it changed, I guess I'm assuming that schools with higher taxes are going to get hurt harder than us.
After the change?
Yeah. Or is it just everybody's going to be minimally affected?
I think everyone's going to be minimally affected. I mean, it just depends. It depends on. Yeah.
For them to address the people that are actually abusing the system.
Depends on how you're getting your tax revenue. Is it from
referendums
or is it from agricultural? Is it from housing conditions? Is it from factories or businesses in the area? I think that shakes it out a little bit. But I know I talked to my colleagues, they feel a little bit better about it. Still don't feel great, but it's better than it was. The next one is just the state tuition support, the funding formula, and what that looks like. This is the money that's going to be going into our education fund. So this was a run, one of the runs that were performed by a legislative group, and this is what our basic tuition support, they had us at 4.45 million in this year, and next year it's going to be 4.52 million next year. Before it was 4.44, and then the year after 4.68. But the thing to keep in mind there, they also had as our AADM was increasing every year, so it looks like we're getting more money. We're getting 1.8% increase and then a 3.6% increase. So our total tuition support, and the difference between those, we have our basic tuition support, our total tuition support is after you figure in things like special education, career and tech ed, honors and academic performance, and ESL. That's where we're at. And then after that, so it's at a little under 5.1 million, 5.2 million, and then 5.4 million. And I showed the change in tuition support. However, when you break it down per ADM, it's not quite as much though, is it? I mean, it goes to show that when they say it's 2.7% increase and a 4.2% increase, that's after they consider that we grew in students as well. It's really, what it comes out to be is a 0.9% increase and a 2.1% increase in their education fund. Amount of money, the state tuition support that we receive there, so. I thought it was interesting, I thought you guys would wanna know that, I wanna see that, so. Obviously this impacts what we're gonna do would be able to do with, raises and things like that, and, supporting our students educationally, so.
Thank you.
Yep, you're welcome. So that's all I have, it's time for your comments, folks.
All right, Daryl, the lead in charge.
No comments, yeah.
Shocking, I have some. I do have a question to start. I know Daryl had brought it up previously. Can we make sure that we still recognize the high school academic team on their win at some point here? Pretty big accomplishment. Also the play is this weekend, April 11th at 7 p.m., April 12th at 2 p.m., and April 13th at 5 p.m. And Rosie is probably still looking for volunteers if anyone is willing to. Okay, if anybody is willing to, it's super simple, you just run a table. It's not that hard. And then also prom is this weekend, and I just wanted to remind people to have fun, but be careful.
Brad, you got anything?
No comments from me, thank you.
Peter?
I got more of an ask or a suggestion, but, I didn't know if we could maybe get a graph of the curriculum plan, what, like the 6-year plan of roughly what we're planning and what that would cost. I know you said we're working on doing something every year like we're supposed to. I didn't know if we could see that broke down at some point. Maybe so we can see it planned out, or what curriculum is next, or what your thoughts
The issue
are.
we're running into is the dollar amounts change so much from every 6 years.
Okay.
Where it can be challenging, but we can.
But just an idea or a plan of what would be next, and if all our curriculums would hit that 6-year plan and stuff like that.
Yeah.
More like math of like what years what.
Yeah.
Like this is language arts year, this is the math year, this is the science, social studies.
And is that high school and elementary? I just have a few questions. Or would like to see what the plan is. Since we haven't done it in a while, I would like to see what the plan is for the future. And that's all I have.
Great. Well, I don't have a lot. Thanks everybody for coming. Thanks everybody for watching. A lot of information to take in, so.
I mean, hope you go to the play. Looking forward to it.
All right, we'll go ahead and adjourn.